Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone, wherever you are. We've got people from all over the U.S. and all over the world remoting in today. My name is Russ Gannum, and I am the Dean of International Programs at the University of Iowa. And it is my great pleasure to welcome you to our virtual holiday baking event. Our idea is to spread a little holiday cheer at a moment when we are all separated from one another. Please let me thank Amy Brewster in our Communications and Constituent Relations Office for organizing this activity. Like many things this year, our virtual baking event is unprecedented, and we are deeply grateful to Amy for handling the multiple logistics necessary to put everything together. If you have your bag of ingredients, and I'm going to pick up mine right now. If you have your bag of ingredients, it is thanks to Amy. So please give her a shout out. Special thanks also go to Michael Bortscheller and the International Student and Scholar Services team for coming up with the idea and for helping to get the word out.
So we just applauded.
Yeah. There we go. I love to see those applause signs. A shout out also goes to Michael and Amy Green for serving as our tech specialists today. And as we continue our thank yous, none of this would be possible without our dear friend, Beverly Brandow, who is joining us from Baltimore, Maryland this morning. And Bev is sponsoring today's event. She is a native of Iowa and an alumna of the University of Iowa. And as we said, she now resides in Baltimore, Maryland. And Bev's generosity over the years has supported interactions between UI International students and the community at large. We are delighted to welcome her and her friend Marty Mangold this morning. And if Bev wants to say a few words, she may do so. Or if not, that is perfectly fine too.
Yeah, good. It's good enough for a little bit. That's great. Yes, I think so.
I arrived in Iowa City in September of 1945. And when I told the cab driver I wanted to go to Hillcrest Dormitory, he said, "Oh, you must be mistaken. That's for men." And so I showed him the letter, and he said, "Well, let's go see." And when we arrived at Hillcrest, they said, "No, it'll be for women this year." So I lived at Hillcrest 45, 46. And then for the next 2 years, 46, 47, and 47, 48, I lived at East Lawn Dormitory, and I also worked there. So if there's anybody listening who lived in East Lawn those 2 years, why, I was the one who was at the desk and probably took you to the linen closet to show you where to get the sheets to make your own bed. I remember a lady from India said, "Beverly, could you show me how to make a bed?" So I showed her how to make her bed, and we became friends. And I enjoyed being in East Lawn. Sarah Jane Howell was the house mother, and she was wonderful. And if any of you went to Pearson's drugstore, why, he was her son-in-law. I remember the people who lived in the corner room, 47, 48, they were Pat and Muriel. And Pat worked for a lawyer part-time and went to school part-time. So we shared our days like that, working part-time and going to school. But I loved living in Iowa City, and I graduated then in June 48, and I've been back several times since, but I was there for those 3 years.
Well, thank you, Bev. You know, I know that you were back in Iowa City for the Ohio State game a few years ago, which was a wonderful event. It was probably the most momentous victory in our football history, and it was thanks to you. You were our good luck charm.
Well, that was a wonderful, wonderful weekend. I thoroughly enjoyed it. They planned it very well, and we heard lots of interesting talks, and there were lots of fun things to do, and it was just a fabulous weekend.
Right. And you got to experience the wave as well,
Yes.
which is
Yeah, and I was so impressed with what the architects had done.
right. It's a beautiful hospital, and the view into the stadium is magnificent. And we were delighted that you were able to participate in that event. And thank you again for sponsoring this event today. You are a treasure. We miss you, and we are so delighted that we can establish this connection this morning. Um, and so our leader in baking today is Becky Smoke in Solon, Iowa, and she runs Becky's Mindful Kitchen. And Becky's Mindful Kitchen, and you see her website in the chat. We also recommend that you follow Becky's Mindful Kitchen on Facebook and Instagram as well, because it is a place where people come to cook and to connect in a natural setting. Becky's Mindful Kitchen is open to private groups and business teams, while also providing kid classes and camps. Similarly, if you go there, and I haven't driven up to Solon, but I plan to do so soon, there is a treehouse, a ninja obstacle course, and art installations on the property. And goats and chickens will greet you upon arrival. So it's a true experience at Becky's Mindful Kitchen, and she's going to share her cookie baking expertise with us today. So again, thank you, Bev, thank you, Becky, and thanks to everyone who has remoted in and who is attending this event. It's a great way to spread some holiday cheer and just to have some time together as Christmas approaches us.
Yeah.
Thank you, Russ. Man, it's always interesting when you hear someone introduce you, because you're like, oh, like when was the last time I updated my like bio on anything? So I'm glad it's not too outdated. I had one that was very outdated that gave me only one child, and I now have 3. So I'm glad I did update it recently. I've learned that the hard way. It's such like, man, you guys, what a great group you are. I don't know many of you, and I've met only some of you in the last like 20 minutes, but anybody who's involved in this program, you have one amazing dean in charge who cares about you, and I can just tell that from the 20 minutes I've known Russ. So thank you everyone for giving me the chance. We're going to do some baking today. If you're not a baker, that's totally fine, because I like to teach people who have zero skills in the kitchen, because I promise you, you will succeed in this. And even if your cookies don't look perfect, like they're going to taste really great. You have the recipe in front of you. If you are baking along with me, great. If I'm going too fast, speed up. But you can also ask me to slow down. I already have some dough that's chilled. And so we're going to bake together up to the point when the dough has to go in the fridge or freezer to chill out for a bit. And then I'm going to kind of move ahead and show you where we're at with the next steps on everything. And then you can watch, and then when your dough is all chilled, you can then do those steps too. If you're just like watching for enjoyment, have fun. Feel free to unmute yourself to ask any questions. You can also ask questions in the chat, and I'm decently good at reading at the same time. Oh, look at somebody else is going to answer questions. I love this. All right, so we have our recipe. Now, I am going to mention a few things before we get baking, okay? First of all, make sure you have your ingredients out. Second of all, this recipe is a little different, okay? Because Andrea was so awesome. She made it so you can do this without needing a lot of equipment, which, like, that's why she's so great, right? Normally, when baking cookies, you're going to want to cream together your butter and sugar. And the reason you do that is because it's science. So if you like science, then you'll enjoy this. If you don't, trust me, hang out with me for like 2 minutes and you'll be like, that's really cool. The butter and sugar work together when you cream it together to build up like little, like there's little crystals, right? Like when you cream it together, sorry, I'm not going to nerd out on you for too long, I promise. But there's a structure that's built up with the sugar in there. So when your cookie bakes and steam releases, that's what gives it that really cool, crumbly texture and all that good mouthfeel. And also, if you cream together butter and sugar, you will get more cookies out of every batch. So that's always also a win. However, it is really, really hard to successfully cream together butter and sugar by hand, unless if you have like a good Popeye arm, which maybe that reference isn't going to fly, but unless if you have very large muscles, okay, it's going to be very hard. So Andrew was amazing by getting us a recipe that doesn't require that. But I just want to give a heads up if you're like, this is different. The other change too, guys, just so you know, the weight of the flour is an accidental typo there. 2 cups of an all-purpose flour is actually going to be more around like 260 grams, not 310 grams. So that was just a little typo there that we just caught. So if you're weighing out your ingredients, do go to 260 grams. That will help your dough from being too dry. If you do 310, you're going to have to add in more milk. So that's only a couple quick changes. I tested this recipe out. I made 3 batches real quick this morning. I did one where I did not do the dry ingredients in a separate bowl. I hate washing dishes. So if possible, I try to avoid extra dishes. So if you want to do everything in one bowl, you can do that, or you can have an extra bowl. Any questions real quick? No? Okay, so we're gonna get started. Hold on, I have to do this. And this is the thing about my classes, guys, is you see the real everything here. I need to like shove the things off my back counter because it's driving me crazy and it's normally not in the camera site. And so I'm just gonna just like take everything and move it to the side so I feel better. So just give me a hot second on this one. It's like if you're staring at something the whole time, it's driving a little crazy. Also, if you are not in Iowa right now, if you want to write where you're cooking from, it's kind of fun for us to see where everyone's from. All of my online classes, you guys, are free. And I'm trying to get as many states covered and as many countries covered before the end of the year. So if you're not from Iowa, you want to see where you're cooking from, thank you. That'd be awesome. This afternoon, I have a fudge class, and on Monday, cinnamon rolls, and then the rest of my free online classes are on my website. Okay, enough talking. Now let's cook. We have our wet ingredients and dry ingredients in a separate bowl. So I'm going to go ahead and do extra dishes, okay, because I love y'all. We're going to put together all of our dry ingredients. Our flour. If you don't have a scale, that's okay. I'm going to show you guys how to properly measure your flour. You have 2 cups, so you're going to get out your 1 cup measuring cup, your biggest one, right? And you're going to need a spoon. Now, I would not say this if it wasn't actually like important, but this is how a lot of people measure their flour, and it's wrong. If you take your measuring cup and you go into your bag of flour and you scoop like this, all right, you're going to end up with almost 25% more flour than you need, all right? Instead, you have to spoon your flour into your measuring cup. So if you're weighing it, then you don't have to do that at all. But if you are going to be just measuring with a cup, then you have to use your spoon, and you're going to measure in 2 cups of flour. So you're going to fill up your cup to the top, turn around your spoon, and brush off the extra. All right, so we're going to do 2 cups of flour into your bowl right now. I need to scroll and find someone who's actually cooking. Right now, I'm just watching a lot of faces. There we go. There's some cookers. I like it. All right, 2 cups of flour. I just went to a page where no one has any cameras on at all. All right, so brush off the top, put that in my bowl. Any questions at this point? This way takes longer, and that's why if you have a kitchen scale, I do recommend just weighing out your ingredients. It goes way faster for that one, especially for like larger amounts when I'm doing, 20 cups of things or all my sourdough bread baking. I do everything by scale. All right, So we got our flour in. All right. Next up, my computer's about to die. We're going to have to do our baking powder. Now, there's a difference between baking powder and baking soda. Baking powder doesn't require anything acidic to activate it. All right. So there's nothing in this recipe that would actually activate the baking soda. That is why there's baking powder. So you're going to do 2 teaspoons or 1 teaspoon, I'm sorry, of baking powder. The nice thing about baking powder too is that it's double acting, which means that it's not only going to be activated when liquid ingredients are added to it, but also is not activated until it gets hot, until it gets put into the oven. And that is why you can chill the recipe. Oh, look it, if you have those packs, your stuff's already measured. My goodness, that's fun and easy. Should have picked up one of those after all. All right, so I got my baking soda or baking powder in there, and then salt, 1/2 teaspoon of salt. Now, do this, like humor me, and pour in your hand, unless if you have the baking pack, and then you're all good to go, right? Pour in your hand what you think is the correct amount of salt, right? So 1/2 teaspoon or 2.8 grams, right, of salt. So pour it in your hand and then check to see if you are correct in your measurement. That's a really good way, guys, to become better bakers. So that way you can like kind of skip a lot of steps. If you know like, oh, this is what 1/2 teaspoon of salt is, you can just pour it straight into your hands. So pour it into your hands first, checking your measuring spoon. And if you're right, pour it in. I do that for all my measurements. All right, so we got flour, baking powder, salt. Our last dry ingredient that's gonna go in here is the powdered sugar. So we're gonna do 3/4 cup of powdered sugar. Another thing that makes this recipe great is that, oh yeah, so my goodness, you guys have that pack, you were just good to go. This cookie is not super sweet, which means that we get to have a lot of fun with the frosting, all right? So it's 3/4 cup of powdered sugar. With that, you don't have to be super careful about the scooping in. You just go ahead and take your measuring cup and put that in. So 3/4 cup of powdered sugar going in our dry ingredients. And yes, do wash your hands. I didn't tell you guys to do that. I usually say it to all my kid classes. I gave you the benefit of the doubt, but you're right. Wash your hands. All right, all of our dry ingredients are in here. Now, go ahead and you're gonna mix this up.
Hello.
Oh,
Can
yeah.
you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, you're going so fast.
Okay, I am. And this is the tricky part because some of these people have it all measured out. Do you have your recipe in front of you?
No, it's in my phone too.
Oh, so I feel like, oh, that makes it harder. I get that. Okay, I am going to. So just so you know, the way we're doing this is I will be stopping once I get this to let everyone catch up. But I kind of go like a little faster because I can see there's some people who are keeping up with me. So don't worry, we're not leaving you behind, okay? You'll get a chance because I'm going to review everything. All right.
Okay.
All right, I gotcha. In our bowl, guys, we have 2 cups of flour. We have our salt, so that 1/2 teaspoon, and our 1 teaspoon of baking powder. We also added in 3/4 cup of our powdered sugar. All powdered sugar is like your regular granulated sugar that's been just like pulverized, right? You can put regular sugar in a food processor and make your own powdered sugar, all right? That's all it is, all right? There's nothing special or different about it. That's all in our dry ingredient bowl, all right? Just a medium-sized bowl like this. We're gonna mix this all up. Now, if you didn't wanna do this first, you didn't have to. You could add these all in separately to our next bowl. The advantage of doing this first is then it's just done. So we're gonna mix this all up. If you have a whisk, use a whisk, fork, spoon, your hands, it all works, right? So we're mixing that all up. That just ensures that all of our ingredients are well combined.
I have a question.
Yes.
Hi, so from the ingredient bag that we received, all the dry ingredients are mixed. So I was if we need to put in more dry ingredients, because you told us to add like 200 grams.
Okay, so what I was saying was the recipe. So the if you have the recipe pack, you're fine. They put that together based on like the right measurements. You don't have to add anything more to it.
Okay.
What I was saying is if you are following this from the recipe yourself and you're doing it with your own flour, to know that the gram amount of flour was a typo and it's less, it's 260. But if you have the pack that you picked up from Hy-Vee, then you just ignore everything I've said. You're good to go. You're fine. So just don't pay attention to any of those comments.
Yeah. So
you just if it's all pre-mixed, then you just dump it in. You got the easy job. And I'm jealous, just a little jealous. I'm just kidding. So for the rest of us who are schlepping in the kitchen and mixing our own stuff, we have everything in our bowl, right? Our dry ingredients, and we're just setting it aside. Okay. Now, butter time. Creaming that butter is important because you don't want like chunks of butter in your cookies, right? Because otherwise you have pools of butter melting everywhere. So you're gonna do 10 tablespoons or 140 grams of softened butter. Now, if you wanna like get technical, you're looking at about like 60 degrees is the temperature you want your butter to be, 65 degrees or so. Then leaving it on your counter for about an hour or so before you use it is what you want. You don't want it melted. So you're doing, 10 tablespoons is gonna be 1 stick of butter, all right, plus 2 additional tablespoons. So you can just kind of cut that with a butter knife, right? And put that in our bowl. If you have a stand mixer or if you have like a hand mixer, anything mechanical, bring it out and let it do the work for you. If not, you can do this yourself using a spoon or a really hard spatula. And you're gonna be creaming it together. And I'm gonna do it by hand so that way those who are also not having anything mechanical can see how we're doing it. So to cream together our butter and sugar, I have my butter in there. I'm gonna use the back of my spoon to kind of press that butter against the side of the bowl to kind of start the process. If you just try to stir your butter, good luck, it's not gonna work. So you gotta use the back of your spoon to press in to there. I'm gonna get my other camera set up, actually, to help you see. All right. And again, if you are using if you have a stand mixer, just use it. And you're gonna use the paddle attachment for that. Excellent. Unplug my camera there. There we go. All right, so we are just mixing it in. You want to press it against your bowl and mix it until it is all like, it looks like it could be all spread out and there's no kind of difference between the different pieces. You don't want any chunky, it should be all nice and smooth, which is pretty impossible to do if you have really cold butter. I guess my other camera's not gonna work today. Technical difficulties, we have all been there. All right, so mix until it's smooth, right? That's what you want. Should not take that long. If you were using a stand mixer, you were done 20 minutes ago, all right? Once it is all kind of creamed together, no chunks, looks like a beautiful ball of butter, then we're gonna add in our 2 teaspoons of vanilla, okay? That's gonna give it the sugar cookie flavor. Now, let's say you are someone who's like really creative and you'd like to have fun and try new things in the kitchen and you don't like sugar cookies. You could add in any flavoring you want. If you have like lemon extract and you just want to make some lemon cookies, you could add lemon instead of vanilla. If you have some maple and you want to add some maple, so you can get creative at this point and go rogue and add other type of extracts. I'm going to add just 2 teaspoons of the vanilla extract. But you betcha, like another time, I'm definitely going to add some, because I love lemon, add some lemon. You could also do like add into this recipe cocoa powder and do like peppermint and cocoa and make some chocolate peppermint cookies. You could do your lemon and also add in like some cranberries and white chocolate and macadamia nuts. So lots of options. So right now, we're doing 2 teaspoons of vanilla. Okay, so that'd be 10 milliliters of vanilla for those not doing your teaspoons. And I'm just gonna mix that in. I'm just gonna do one at a time of these wet ingredients. Now, vanilla extract is a little bit brown. You can get clear vanilla extract, but I promise you 2 teaspoons is not gonna impact the color of your overall cookies. So we mix that in, and then we're gonna mix in our eggs. So we have 1 large egg. And I was just telling people that came in that I grabbed these. We have about 50 chickens here, and so I was letting them out this morning and then grabbed one, so it's still kind of warm actually from being late this morning. So we're gonna crack 1 egg in there. Now, we're gonna need to beat this egg, all right? Because you don't want like the whites and the yolks to get all like squished together. Because if you don't beat it well, some of your cookies are gonna have like almost like a scrambled egg consistency, and that's really gross. So you're gonna wanna get a fork or your whisk ready. What I'm gonna do, again, saving dishes, right? I'm gonna crack it into my bowl, all right? But I have my butter kind of off to one side. There's some vanilla left. I'm gonna put my egg on this side and beat it first. So I'm gonna crack my egg there. I should get my camera to work. And I'm gonna beat it with a fork. And you're just gonna beat it until that egg yolk and the egg white is totally, completely combined, okay? So either with a fork or a whisk, beat up your egg. I'm still trying to fix my other camera. So the as far as like, if let's say you're using like a farm egg or anything like that, the size of the egg is not going to matter too much unless if you have like a tiny pullet egg. Any of your eggs, if you're using farm eggs, will work for this recipe. So don't get hung up on that. Now, you guys, I forgot to show you how to do a one-handed egg crack. So while you guys are whisking up your egg, I'm going to teach you guys how to crack an egg with one hand, okay? Just a second. There you go. Could not find a Sharpie and I realized I had a whole cup of it. All right. To crack an egg with one hand, this is the way I teach. And in my kitchen at age 5, you have to start only cracking an egg with one hand. So I take my egg, and to make it easier, I'm going to draw a face on it. 2 eyes and a mouth, okay? And just for fun, we'll name this egg Russ, okay? In honor of your dean, all right? Usually it's Bob, but we'll stick with Russ on this one, okay? Now, stick with me, guys. This gets a little dark, all right? So first of all, we take our 2 fingers and we cover Russ's eyes so he doesn't see what's about to happen, all right? Then we reach below and we cover his mouth so he can't scream, all right? You don't want the neighbors to hear, all right? So we have our fingers over his eyes and our thumb over his mouth. And then you're gonna crack Russ right above the mouth there to create our own mini Russ egg puppet, okay? So again, hear that? I'm gonna crack right here. And then your thumb's gonna pull down, okay? And then your fingers are coming up and see? Oh, Russ does not wanna crack open there. That's the problem with a really good fresh egg, guys, is, there we go, is out comes there. So then you're gonna end up with your little Russ puppet. I'm gonna grab one more egg to show a little better on that one. So again, you, poor Russ wants to live, I know, but he gets to make cookies now. He feeds us, all right? So let me grab one more egg to show you quickly how to do that. I have an egg. Now, well, I'll grab it later after we roll it out because my basket of eggs got scurried off with my little 5-year-old helper here. One time she does her job. But cover those fingers, cover the thumb, crack, and that. It gets really hard, guys, during my camps back in the day when I have like 25 kids in here and I'm naming and drawing a face on each egg, and we get really attached to our eggs, and then it just gets kind of weird, and then it just like, it gets dark, but it's fun. We have our egg in there, we've beaten it, right? And then we're mixing it in with our butter. All right, we are about done. You're like 5 minutes away from being done with your cooking for now, all right? We are at this point where we have our butter and our vanilla and our egg, and we're mixing it all up. It might get a little curdled looking, and that's okay. It should not look delicious at this point. It should look a little off, where you're like, this is weird. If it doesn't look great, then you're doing great, all right? So I got that all really well mixed together. I appreciate this opportunity to do it all by hand. I've gotten too lazy with using, I have 12 KitchenAid stand mixers in the kitchen. And so like, I don't do things by hand very often anymore. And I like this. All right, now we've not added in our milk yet. All right. So we're gonna, I'm gonna go a little rogue and do what I did when I did this recipe a few times, because it's just a little easier. I'm actually going to not alternate with the milk, because there's only 2 tablespoons of it. So I'm just gonna go ahead and put my 2 tablespoons in that bowl right now. I know the recipe doesn't say that, but like, it's okay, all right? So I'm gonna put 2 tablespoons of milk in right now. So that way it's done, check it off the list. The next part is the fun part. Fun enough. We're mixing these together, all right? Now, what I'm gonna do is make a little bit, yep, you can replace the milk with any like non-dairy milk, or honestly, because it's only 2 tablespoons, you might go ahead and see if you can get by without needing it at all. Otherwise, just add a little bit more, like you're needing more liquid, right? So you could add in just a little bit more butter, or like half, like just an egg yolk instead of that milk will work too, because that milk is adding some protein. So adding like another like egg yolk or egg white will work for that, but you also may be fine without it. All right, so I made a little bit of a well, you can't tell, in my flour, and I'm adding all my butter mixture in there. Alternatively, you can add your flour to your butter mixture, but if you happen to have chosen a smaller bowl for your butter like I did, that's not gonna work too well. So I do it this way. All that matters at this point, guys, is we are mixing together our flour and our butter until it's well combined. You do not want to overmix. If you overmix and get like way too aggressive with it, your cookie's gonna end up kind of tough, right? You have a little bit more of a hockey puck than you want. So you're just gonna mix that together until it's well combined. If you're doing this by hand, I'm gonna recommend using your hands, okay? If you're doing it in a stand mixer, use your paddle attachment. But if you're doing it by hand, it just works a lot better to use your hands, because you won't overmix that way. And you will make sure that way that that butter mixture gets fully involved. And it's all gonna get baked, so you don't have to worry about having got your hands over everything. If your dough does not come together at all, and you've like mixed in and you know there's no like missing chunks of butter, then just add in a little bit more milk until it gets to be a nice soft dough. You do not want a sticky dough. So as I describe it, this is the dough that if you threw it at somebody next to you, it would bounce off of them, not stick to them, okay? Because we're gonna roll this out, we do not want a sticky dough. So your dough should look like this, not sticky, instead nice and soft. Now you could bake this right now and it would taste delicious, but it would spread out a bit. And if you're trying to make cool shapes, guys, it's not gonna end too well when like your snowman like extends into one giant blob, or your stocking looks like a deformed like leg, all right? So you will chill it only to keep your shape like tight. But if you don't care about the shape and you just want to eat cookies, then bake it now, right? Another thing, here's a little tip. Let's say you're like, Becky, I don't have cookie cutters. All I want to make I want to make circle round cookies. Then you don't have to actually even roll out your cookie dough. What you can do is, let's see here, get this out of the way. All right, is you'll roll your dough into a nice, like well uniformed log. All right, and kind of shape the ends. You're gonna wrap it in plastic wrap and chill it. And then when you bring it out of the fridge to cut it or to like bake it, just use like if you have a knife or a sharp spatula, or this is like a dough cutter, you can just cut your circles like this and bake them. And you don't have to even roll it out. And that way you don't waste any dough at all. So if you just want to make round cookies after you chill it, you can just cut your circles out like this. Like obviously it needs to be chilled or else it won't hold its shape. So I'll do that a lot when I'm just doing round cookies. And again, the longer and skinnier your log, the smaller your cookies will be. But the more of them you'll get. Once your dough's to the stage, guys, we are wrapping it up and we are chilling it, all right? You can chill your dough for an entire day or just a few hours. If you are impatient, then just put it in your freezer for like 10 minutes, okay? So lots of options there. And then wash your hands off too. Once your hands are sticky, your dough will feel sticky. So you do have to wash your hands for that. So I'm going to do that, and then I'm going to grab my dough that's been chilling while you guys kind of take care of your situation at home, okay? Any questions at this point? No, we're good? Okay. You can also freeze your dough like for, up to a month plus as well. So there's always that option, or you can just freeze half and bake half now too. That's always nice. I like to freeze my cookies once they're baked, and then you can just pull those out. And I like to even frost them frozen because then they're really nice and hard. And then they defrost quickly and you eat them that way. So there's those options for you. Yeah.
Hey, Becky, I have a quick question for you if you have a moment. So if you freeze your cookies before you frost them, does that make the frosting stick on the cookie better?
It makes it stick on it better. What it does though is it makes your cookies a lot sturdier, so you can kind of you don't have to worry about them crumbling on you or falling apart as you're frosting them, which I like. So I just like working with that kind of that for sure that they are not warm. Like the biggest mistake you guys, well, that's an exaggeration. In the top 3 of the frosting mistakes you can make is frosting them when they're still too warm. They have to be chilled and like completely cool. Otherwise your frosting is going to just go everywhere. So if they're frozen, then for sure they're not too warm at all. So this dough has been in the fridge since 8 o'clock this morning. So almost 3 hours now. It's nice and cold. I'm going to then want to roll it out. While I'm rolling it out, I'm going to go ahead and preheat my oven, okay? So the oven's going to be 180 degrees Celsius or 350 degrees Fahrenheit. Now, one thing about me is like I do a lot of French like pastry baking, and I have family in Italy, so I do a lot of Italian baking. So I actually have some of my ovens always set to Celsius, and I have some that are Fahrenheit because of this. So those who, I know some of you guys are not baking from the States, and so a big appreciation to Andrea for putting in all those conversions too for you guys. But if you're like me, you have your oven set to Celsius, I've learned the hard way to like, I forgot to tell some people that, and like, that's a big difference. So make sure that you get the right temperature, that you're doing 180 Celsius and not 350 Celsius. All right, so I'm gonna do just portion of my dough at a time. The other half, I'm gonna keep chilled until I'm ready to use it. I'm gonna roll it out. Either put flour down on your counter, or you can use parchment paper and roll it out onto parchment. And then instead of you picking up your cookie dough, like your cookie shape, and putting it on your parchment, I then instead will take away the scraps and leave the cookies, the cutout cookies right there, so I don't mess with them at all. So a couple options for that, like again, you put flour on your counter or roll out onto parchment paper as it is. You don't want a lot of stickiness, so I grab some flour and I'm going to flour my rolling pin a little bit and the top of my dough. I will also leave some flour to kind of dip cookie cutters into, and that will help them not stick. So to roll out our cookies, I'm just gonna kind of press a little bit there. I like all my rolling pins. I don't like rolling pins with handles. I do all French rolling pins. The key is gonna be rolling out. Keep your hands kind of together in the middle. It gives you a lot more control to kind of work out your dough as you want it. If you're gonna do different shapes, guys, do all the same shapes at one time instead of mixing it up. So that way you can get the most out of the dough and the most consistent baking. If you don't have any cookie cutters, just use like the bottom of a glass of water to do round cookies. You can find like the lids of a jar, make for great cookie cutters. The best glasses are actually like wine glasses, anything with a nice kind of thin rim to it. It's a little too early for wine drinking, perhaps, but also perhaps not, depending where you are. So you can do both. All right, how thin do I roll out my dough? I like that question because I do give you the answer of that's up to you. All right, there is a thickness on the recipe. All right, if you are somebody who's actually going to measure, then that's great. And in all honesty, I do have like a measuring tape in the drawer next to me because I use that for like any of my croissants and stuff. But for most people, you're not going to want to get a ruler and measure the thickness of your dough. What I'm going to offer to you is this: the thinner you roll it, the faster it's going to bake. So you're going to have to use your brains a little bit with this, right? Like you're going to have to use the gray matter and actually look at your cookies as they're baking. If at 10 minutes they are starting to turn brown, please don't be like, well, I don't know, like the recipe said like 12 to 15. Pull it, right? Because probably your cookies are thinner or your oven's running hot. If you like thicker cookies, don't roll them out thin. Like it's that simple. Like these are your cookies, so you make them how you like them. I'm going to roll mine out. I'm going to show you thickness quick. Kind of in between. The reason being is I have kids that are going to be gobbling these up, and so I'm going to roll them out kind of thin. So like this is the thickness I'm going to. Darn lighting, it's kind of hard to tell. All right. I know that my kids are going to be eating a lot of cookies, and so I'm going to make them a little thinner so that way I don't feel as bad when they tell me they've eaten 10. I, for one, like thicker cookies. Now, to cut my cookies out, I'm going to kind of put some flour on my dough. All things just help your cookie not stick. If I'm doing round shapes or anything like that, I'm going to try to line up and I apologize that my other camera is not working, so you can't get a really cool close-up look. But I'm going to line up my cuts as close together as possible so I don't have as many scraps. And then instead of removing my cookie, I'm going to remove the excess dough from around the cookies. And then you just re-roll any extra dough. When chilled, they really are not going to spread much at all. If you're worried about them spreading a little bit, then you can just kind of pick them up and adjust them a little bit on the parchment. But that's why I like to roll them out and cut them on the parchment instead of on my counter. Then I don't have to worry about moving them too much. Any questions on that? Now, if you wanted to do, I'll show you too. If you wanted to do something a little different and make, get this out of the way, like a wreath or like a filled donut too, or not donut, I mean, sorry. I have a donut class coming up. Filled cookie. You can cut out a circle in the middle of these. So you'll take a smaller round cutter or like even like a spoon, and you're gonna cut out a hole inside the middle of each one and bake those. And then you'll put them together, and you can put some like jelly and powdered sugar on top, okay? Or you can put like some Nutella inside. You can make like some really cool sandwich cookies with these. There's a lot you can do with that. Or like if you have lemon curd or salted caramel, there's a lot of neat things you can do within these cookies. If you don't have a smaller round cutter, you can just take a spoon or a knife and kind of take out the center of your cookie and kind of manipulate it with your fingers to make a hole. And then you can, after you bake it, you can always place it on top of another one and put some filling in the middle, or make two of them and make some wreaths, all sorts of possibilities there. Yes, I know. There's this isn't like the actual like recipe for like some of those filled cookies, but I tested it out and this recipe does work because it's not as sweet. Any questions on this part? No? I'm gonna then quickly go over how to do some frosting and how to make your own frosting, because there is one important detail to making your own like glaze or frosting that is important to know. Otherwise you will fail. Okay, so let me show you that one real quick. Let me get this out of the way. Okay, so making your frosting. I have some cookies that are already baked, okay? And a lot of times, guys, I'm gonna actually do like a royal icing. I'm gonna use meringue powder and egg whites and do all that. But I'm gonna show you how to do a glaze, just using milk and powdered sugar for that. And the thing that I care about is showing you what consistency you want, okay? So that's what the point of the next like 3 minutes is. I'm gonna grab a new bowl because poor Russ, egg Russ, took up my frosting bowl. So I'm gonna grab a new bowl. All right. I'm not going to teach you a recipe because I want to teach you how to like create your own. All you need is powdered sugar or some milk or water. You don't even need milk, okay? I'm going to suggest you start with 1 cup of powdered sugar, okay? And the whole point of this is for you to learn the ratio and like the thickness. So I'm putting 1 cup of powdered sugar into my bowl. And then you're gonna want a spoon or a fork or a whisk. And you are just going to be adding in, so powdered sugar in there. You're gonna be adding in a little bit of milk. So I'm gonna start with like just under a tablespoon of milk. And I'm gonna be stirring that in to create a glaze. And you're just gonna be adding in a little milk or water until it comes together to make a frosting. A little goes a long way. So you only will need like 1 to 2 tablespoons of milk to 1 cup of powdered sugar. The ratio and what you're looking for your frosting, so I'm just stirring that together, is a flood consistency. And that's what it's called for like the icing frosting world. Flood means that when you have your frosting and you drizzle it from your spoon, it will create a ribbon that you count to 10, and after 10 seconds, 10 to 15 seconds, it disappears. If you have a consistency of glaze or frosting where after like you like drizzle it into your bowl and after 5 seconds, like you can't see the ribbon, or you like write your initial on it or something like that, or figure 8, then when you go to frost your cookie, that icing's gonna run right off your cookie, all right? So you need to be able to kind of drizzle, make your figure 8, and count to like, try to count to 15 seconds and make sure you can still see that. And after 15 seconds, it can start to kind of come back in. But if after 5 seconds, it disappears, trusting is not gonna end well for your cookies. So you're gonna get your frosting. So I just am just mixing in milk into my powdered sugar. I've not flavored it. Like, please have fun with flavoring. If you have a lemon, zest some lemon. You can zest lemon into it. If you have lemon extract or vanilla extract or orange, like zest any kind of citrus in there. If you have like lavender flowers, you can add some like crushed lavender, make a really good like lavender frosting. Or if you have like cocoa powder, you can add that for chocolate. So if you're not playing like doing your classic decorating, you can also add in obviously your colors, right? So whatever food coloring you want to do. I'm going to show you a technique of frosting that doesn't require you to make different colors of icing, okay? And only requires a toothpick for your tool. All right, so I'll show you that next. But I have my icing. I'm going to drizzle it into my bowl, and I'm going to count to 15. And if it's after 15 seconds, and I would show you if I could, if after 15 seconds, it's then starting to disappear into the rest of the icing, then you're good to go. If it's too thin, add more powdered sugar. If it's too thick, add more milk or water. That's simple, right? Once you get your right consistency, then you're gonna use either a piping bag or a Ziploc bag, okay? Or we're gonna get really fancy and use a spoon and put some frosting onto your cookie. All right. If you're using a piping bag, this technique, put your piping bag or Ziploc bag into another cup and then pour your icing in. It's a lot easier than trying to like hold it and spoon it in like that. Finally put those red Solo cups to use. All right, so again, I just like to put some on my cookie and then use like a toothpick to spread it out. Kind of manipulate out like that. If you don't have a toothpick, you can use a skewer or like a fork to do the following design. But I'm just gonna kind of spread this out on my cookie. Okay. Because I'm hurrying to do this as a demo, I'm not gonna care about my clean borders. And actually in general, unless if I'm doing this for customers, I'm not gonna care about clean borders because that's just not my time. All right, so I have my base white. What I'm gonna do then is, let's see, take like, let's say like my red food coloring, and I'm going to make some dots with it. So I'm not mixing this, I'm just simply putting some red food coloring on there, all right? And then I'm gonna take a clean toothpick and I'm just gonna go ahead and drag that through. If you just do one at a time, you do individual hearts, but if you just kind of like have fun dragging your frosting through, you can make some really cool swirled techniques and looks on there. And have fun blending different colors. So you can do like a red and a blue, make some fun purples, kind of mess around with that. Really simple, kind of feathery look like that, right? That looks like the aftermath of the Rust Massacre, but it's really pretty in person, I promise. So you swirl technique like that, or if you want to do a blend of colors, Make sure you don't do like red and green together though, because that will make brown. You know, some of you guys are like, yes, Becky, I took art once in my life. All right, so I'm gonna do a blue and a yellow to blend. And I'm just gonna kind of swirl those together to make kind of like a fun green, yellow, and blue. So it's super easy and simple and doesn't require any extra messes. It's showing up not great on camera, but in person looks really pretty. Now, the final real quick technique, which is actually kind of nice and I'm a big fan of, requires, it's a little easier if you have different colored icing. So I'm gonna create a red frosting to do with my white base. So I just have some red frosting in this piping bag. Now Ziploc bag works just as well. And I'm mixing it within the bag. So I put in the white and then I put in some of the red frosting. I'm just mixing like this. Just easier, keeps my hands clean. And the food coloring I'm using, I like to use all natural, no artificial color ones. So you don't have as like bright of like reds and stuff like that, but I'm okay with that. So I have my white icing here. All right. And then I'm going to pipe out. And a quick tip is make sure when you're using a piping bag, you are always squeezing from the top down. Otherwise, you'll have icing go all over your face. Okay, so I'm going to pipe some lines across. Now you could also then do different colors like that. I'm just going to do this pink. Then you're going to use your toothpick. I'm just going to do it this way. So you're going to bring it down one side, up the other, down one side, up the other to create a nice little design like that. And if you do different colors, then you can really have fun kind of making your like Christmassy color, or you could do like the candy cane look if you have a bright red. So that's another really easy technique for that. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. Before, like I said, if you do just a dot of a different color and, oh yeah, so the bag was cut for Maria, you were asking if the bag was cut. All I did, I just snipped the top. I don't use any kind of like tip or anything like that. So if you're doing a Ziploc bag, like just like a regular plastic baggie, then I'm going to put my icing in it. And again, to color it, like I'm just going to put in some of my food coloring into the bag. And I'm just gonna kind of mix it together in the bag. Just a quick little way to do it. And again, you're not creating more dishes by like dirtying up another bowl. All right, and then I'm gonna manipulate all the icing into a corner of the bag. All right, so I'll do one with multicolor then. So I'm gonna put, so I'm gonna put some icing down again. Little cookie. Right. And then I'm going to take my scissors and just snip the corner of that bag there. And then let's say I want to alternate. It's kind of pink and blue on here. And then just kind of hard to tell. Do my lines like that. And then you can have your design like that. So super quick and easy. This design, you'll see in bakeries all the time. And people be like, oh, that's so cool. I'm always like, dude, that's like the easiest one to do. So it's really fun to know some really easy designs that like don't require any skill set at all. So I know I rushed those. They're still gonna taste great. They'll be gone in like 2 seconds, like once my children to send. They can tell when I'm done with the class, and they like have like their fingers underneath the door. It's just like waiting to eat everything. Any questions on this? I know it went fast for some of you guys, and I apologize for that. But if you have any questions, like now's your time to ask them. Or you can always message me or email me with any questions following the class. I'm happy to help. Anything like that.
So Becky, I have a quick question about having the icing dry a little bit on the cookies, right? Unless they're eaten sooner than that. But I remember that the icing that I made with the lemon, it was very nice compliment to the sweetness of the cookie, but I let them, and it dried pretty quickly actually.
Yes. Yeah. So,
for storage.
Yes. So for storage, yes. I mean, so like the nice thing about these cookies is, yeah, they will, like, once the icing dries, like it will stay good for a really long time. Especially if you use like water and not milk base for your frosting. If you're using milk in your frosting, I do recommend like after a little bit, like keep it in the fridge, or just again freeze them, and they freeze great even when frosted. If you're doing a design where you're doing like a patchwork, where let's say you want to like make like an ugly Christmas sweater style thing, and you want it like a patchwork, do one section and like let it dry, and then do another, and it'll give it more of that kind of quilted look than doing when it's all wet. If you can also get edible markers, not like edible markers like you're gonna eat the marker, but like edible ink, and then you can like sketch out your design on your cookie, and that's really fun too. It gives you a little more like variability. I'll show you real quick. These cookies are from August, and they're still good. So when done right, like a royal icing and stuff, like they don't go bad. So there's like, that is something really cool. Now, I wouldn't eat them because they're from August, but you can tell that, you know, they don't go moldy, and the icing stays really nice. But that's using a royal icing with meringue powder. So a little different than this glaze. You could also, some people use corn syrup for their glaze to give it kind of extra shine. That's totally up to you. There's lots of really easy recipes for glazes. There might be one on my website. Yep.
Becky, I had a question about the baking process itself, and you may have covered this in your wonderful explanation, but before you put the cookies on the baking sheet, did you coat the pan with like butter or Pam or some kind of cooking spray? Because I've always had problems, you know, just prying the cookies loose. They always stick. And so what kind of tricks of the trade can you share with us?
You know what? The trick is super easy. Parchment paper.
Okay.
Parchment paper. That's the only thing. Like I won't grease my pans ever. I just cook on parchment, and you can reuse that same piece of parchment paper, or if you have like a silicone baking mat, those like kind of reusable baking sheets, nonstick, those work really well too. But yeah, I mean, I won't even use, like, even if I have like a non-stick cookie sheet, I'm still going to use parchment paper or some kind of baking mat. Yep. And so, and Russ had a great question, and I do need to circle back super quick to that, guys. It's like, for baking your cookies, you are going to bake them on average. It's going to be 12 to 15 minutes, right? Keep an eye on it. Some are going to brown faster than others, and you can just pull those off and put the other ones back in. So you don't have to like sacrifice certain ones. All right. So you can pull them out early, pull those off, and then let the others continue baking. You can put them on like a baking rack to cool. Again, I'm not a huge fan of that. Mostly because I'm like, shoot, I should get a baking rack out. I'm like, it's taking like 10 steps to the whole like storage room, and I don't want to do that. So I will just let them cool on the counter, either on like the parchment paper or on on some plates and stuff like that. But do let them cool. Don't pull the whole like it's cool enough, like it's a little warm, I'm gonna ice it. Like you can do it, it's just not gonna, the icing's gonna melt. So let it cool off completely. And if they are starting to burn, take them off that hot tray. Do not leave them on your hot cooking sheet if they've already gotten a little brown, because they will then continue to cook. Get them on a cool counter as soon as possible. Or if you're somewhere where it's cold outside, like you can always just take your cookie sheet outside and put it in the snow to cool them off really quickly. That's how I take all the snow off my deck. Just one hot pan at a time. Works great. Yes, also, if you don't let them cool, like that's fine. Like I don't understand the point of a pretty decorated cookie, to be honest. If I'm gonna eat it, I'm the same way with wrapping presents really nicely. Like I don't understand the point of it. So if you want to eat your cookies with just like frosting dripping off the hot cookie, then do it, because it's your cookie and it doesn't matter. So that's my lesson. There's nothing professional going on here. It is just get a cookie in your mouth time. Any other questions?
Just one other quick question. Do you ever, and if you don't want to answer this, it's perfectly fine, but do you ever just eat the dough?
Oh, all the time. So
right.
One of my most popular classes is my egg-free cookie dough recipe. So that being said, like I eat egg cookie dough all the time. But,
yeah.
But if you January 1st, it's more for kids. So maybe because I know kids won't be hungover on New Year's Day. So and parents will be, so that way they can put their kids on Zoom with me while they like take 30 minutes to themselves. But I have another one, my free egg-free cookie dough classes, and that recipe is on my website. Here's the thing about cookie dough. It's just as much the flour that could get you sick raw than the egg. So the key to like eating cookie dough raw, if you want it to be like safe completely, right, is to pasteurize your flour. And you do that by like popping like 1 cup of flour in the microwave for 1 minute. And that will heat it to the right temperature to kind of kill off any of the E. coli and stuff like that could be in there. So your flour is actually a raw ingredient that needs to be cooked. So there's a little like PSA for you there. That being said, like I ate the cookie dough that you just saw me like roll out raw when I made it. So
yeah, I had to wonder, because if it were me and I were there, I'd be shoveling that dough into my mouth like there was no tomorrow.
Yeah. No, like it's I mean obviously, just like little like disclaimer, for anything done like for our customers or anything like that, like I promise I'm not like eating your dough raw myself. Or am I? But no, like I'm a big fan of building up good gut health by eating things raw, except for chicken. Any other questions? No?
All right.
I know that you guys have some fun and games and stuff planned next, so I will get out of your hair, but thank you so much for letting me spend the morning with you guys. And if you want to keep baking, then join back again in 4 hours to make fudge. So
right. And if I could just thank you, Becky, and if I could just take 30 seconds more of people's time, I wanted to thank Becky. Let's applaud her for her marvelous cooking class. This is just fantastic. We learned a lot about preparation, decorating, what to do with raw dough. I mean, this was just awesome. And so please visit Becky's Mindful Kitchen. Go to the website, go up to Solon. We're going to be interacting with her for years to come. That's for sure. As we close, I wanted to thank all of our participants, especially our international students. Thank you for sticking with us this year. Thank you for your persistence and your grit. You were terrific. Please note that we're always here to support you. Thanks also to Bev and Marty for joining us. Thanks to Bev for promoting in and sponsoring this event. This has just been fabulous. And I'll just close with one other thing, and that is some elves visited international programs last night, and they baked a cookie for us. And it's for for all of us here, just to say thank you to Bev. The elves really appreciate what you're doing for us, and we thank you for celebrating our Cookie Fest with everyone today. So, listen, folks, thank you. Oh, one final shout out to Andrea Sieberman from our ISSS staff, who helped immensely with the recipe and who fielded questions in the chat today. Andrea, you're terrific. And we couldn't have done this without you either. So just terrific work by the team, Andrea, Bev, Becky, Michael, Amy, Amy Brewster. This has been wonderful. So listen, have a wonderful Saturday, have a wonderful weekend, and a great holiday, folks.